Hello guys, good morning everybody. If I am audible, just let me know. हाँ जी, कमेंट सेक्शन में जल्दी जल्दी बताइए if I am audible. Audible. Okay, thank you Vaibhav. Right. So let's start our today's analysis. Okay, एक बार आपको न्यूज़पेपर भी दिख रहा है तो ये भी बता दीजिए मुझे. हाँ जी, न्यूज़पेपर विजिबल है तो ये भी बता दीजिए एक बार. चलिए, नाउ लेट्स ट्राई टू स्टार्ट द टुडेज एनालिसिस, है ना. कोशिश करेंगे इसको कंप्लीट करें आज, एंड जैसे हर बार करते हैं. Okay. Now there is nothing that much important that we have to right now be seeing into the front page. I'm gonna directly come to the editorial page, right? COVID का फिर से let's say impact is getting increased. If I talk about the new variant, it is JN.1, and it is somehow we have seen a lot of cases that have come in Kerala as well. So this is one of the situation that has now been again resurfacing, and we have to be extra cautious. That has been the warning from the center as well as an advisory to the states as well, that they need to be more precaution, because this is the time that we need to be vigilant about, because this new variant and this new COVID has again resurfaced back to the various countries of the world, and it has hit down India as well, right? Okay. Now the article that I'm going to discuss is, this is related to the security breach that happened in Parliament. So we not need to be going into this particular editorial, because we know what happened over there, right? So need not to run into this editorial, and this is related to debarring Donald Trump, right? So these are most of the news that are political news. And if I talk about this article, that is climate action needs an updated lexicon, I don't think we need to go into this news. First of all, the most important news is that this news, as you can see over here, this is one of the most important news that we're going to discuss today, because this is a direct prelims question. I can see over here, direct prelims question. ये आपके prelims में direct आ सकता है ये, because this is counting in for inflation. Second of all, this is a very important prelims topic if I talk about inflation. Third thing that you have to understand is, when I'm talking about inflation, they are talking here about the trends from 2019 till 2023. So this question becomes very important. Now, the most important thing that has been, the debate is related to the topic of inflation, that we have seen in our recent videos as well, and in our recent sessions as well. Now, question over here that is being asked is, what is the reason for inflation? So here, two types of main causes that we can see. They could be demand inflation, or it could be from the supply side, right? I think everybody is able to understand that when I talk about how the inflation can be from demand side and how the inflation can be from supply side. When we talk about inflation is from supply side, it could be due to any number of things. It could be due to, मान लीजिए कि सप्लाई कम हो गई है, there has been reduction of the supply, maybe the production has gone down, maybe there has been certain incidents where there has been certain losses that have been occurred to any particular cereals, any particular food crop, that has reduced the demand, that has reduced the supply, and it has increased the let's say decreased the production, right? So whenever there is a mismatch between the supply and the demand, it obviously creates a situation which is known as inflation. And when I talk about the inflation from the demand side, it can occur due to a variety of reasons. One of the reasons is that is there is increase in aggregate demand, right? There could be an increase in aggregate demand. So let's try to decode what have been the factors that have been responsible in India over the past 4 years that have led to the rise of inflation in the country. Now, let's try to look at this first chart. It is very important. Now, first of all, here they are talking about, in the first chart, as you can see over here, the blue one that we have is the supply side, the darker one we have is the demand factor, and the gray one are the ambiguous factors. Here they are talking about CPI inflation. I think everybody knows that when we talk about inflation, the inflation we are measuring, it is the consumer price index. Now let's try to understand. There they are talking about the level of inflation between January 19 and May 2023. Here they are talking about different products. You can see over here, from cereals to meat and fish to egg to milk to oils and fat to fruits and vegetables, pulses, sugar, spices, non-alcoholic beverages, prepared meals, pan tobacco, clothing, footwear, housing, fuel, household goods and services, health, transport and communication, recreation, education, and personal care and effects. As you can see over here, the most of the areas we can see it has been this light color graph that you can see. And this light color graph is basically related to what? It is related to supply side factors. As here they have obviously mentioned, vegetable oils and fats, milk, eggs, pulses, and sugar frequently experience supply side constraints. And when we talk about non-alcoholic beverages, personal care products, and health related goods are predominantly affected by demand side factors. As you can easily understand as well, भाई जो हेल्थ केयर के प्रोडक्ट हो गए, जो पर्सनल केयर प्रोडक्ट हो गए, उनके प्राइसेस तो ऑब्वियसली डिमांड साइड से बढ़ेंगे. पर ये जो प्रॉब्लम आ रही है ना, जो हमारी डेली नीड की चीजें हैं, जैसे वेजिटेबल्स हो गई, ऑयल्स एंड फैट हो गए, देन यू हैव मिल्क, एग, पल्सेस एंड शुगर फ्रीक्वेंटली एक्सपीरियंस सप्लाई साइड कंस्ट्रेंट्स. So that is the main reason that they are trying to say over here is, in India 55% of the inflation is mainly due to the supply side factors. Very important point that we have to understand. Now, moving to the chart number 2, it is also very important. Let's try to decode the chart number 2, right? Now, as you can see over here, they have mentioned from the time period January 2019 to May 2023. As you can see, from January 2019 to, let's say, January 2020, over the period of 1 year, inflation was predominantly driven by supply factors. Very important. कह रहे जो inflation थी ना, that the main reason was supply factors. Why the main reason was supply factors? Because there was excess of rainfall. अगर मान लीजिए excess of rainfall हो रही है, then it would create an impact on the production that will decrease the supply in the market, and that will cause the inflation, because then there will be a mismatch in the supply and the demand, because there has been reduction in the supply. So from October 2019 to January 2020, the inflation was driven by supply side factors, and it was due to excess of rainfall. Now, the significance of demand side factors in driving inflation saw intermittent increase post COVID-19 waves. This thing we can understand as well कि जैसे ही कोविड का खत्म हुआ, कोविड की वेव खत्म हुई, लोगों ने अपनी स्पेंडिंग बढ़ाई, सरकार ने पैसा इन्फ्यूज किया मार्केट के अंदर, government infused the money into the market. As a result, people started spending again as before the previous case. So as a result, slowly and slowly, the demand picked up the inflation in the country. So this is the point that we have to understand. Again, demand side factors drove inflation sometime after the Russia-Ukraine conflict, contributing to the inflation peak in April 2022. Now, this is the point that you have to understand. As you can see over here, there was, if we talk about demand side factors drove inflation after some time. You must be able to understand that during Russia-Ukraine conflict, there was increase in the oil prices as well, because there was constraint in supply side challenges, right? But after that, after the Russia-Ukraine war had started, again the inflation had picked up in the economy, and that was mainly driven by the demand side factors. So these are the things that we have to understand. These are the trends that we have to understand. And I'm telling you guys, these are the type of questions that we're gonna see in prelims as well. If they ask this year questions on trend base, then this article, mark my words, it is one of the most important article that could have been there related to the news on economy and the questions that can be asked from the economy. They can directly ask the question, which of the following we can say entities experience supply side constraints, right, from this period to this period. So this question can be directly asked, and then you cannot complain that it wasn't there, we had to, what, from where we have to study. Everything is coming in the newspaper, right guys? अगर यहां तक सबको समझ में आ गया तो एक बार टाइप कर दो yes. Okay, now coming to the next news, it is the outcomes of the COP28 climate summit. Now, I had separately made a video on this as well, but let's try to decode and make you revise this whole topic, and let's try to understand if there is anything new that we can come out from this particular COP28 climate summit. So first of all, let's try to discuss the main areas that are discussed within the negotiations part, right? 5 things you have to understand that are a part of negotiations when we talk about Conference of Parties under United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. See, Conference of Parties is the highest decision making body. This was COP28, it was held in Dubai, UAE, right? COP27 was in Sharm el Sheikh, Egypt. COP26 was in Scotland, right? Glasgow. Now, in COP28, there were major things that were to be discussed. First, the major thing was related to mitigation. Second was related to adaptation. Third was related to loss and damage. 4 was related to climate finance, and 5th was related to global stocktake. Now coming to the first part, that was mitigation. in the process of mitigation, there has been always a debate that whether we want to go for phase out of fossil fuels or phase down of fossil fuels. Developed countries are on the favor of phase out of fossil fuels. Developing countries who are still reliant upon coal, they say phase down of fossil fuels. Now, combining these two things, they came at a particular conclusion and a consensus that instead of going towards phase out and phase down, we will be having a new word, that is transition away from fossil fuels, that was openly declared at this COP28. But this word has almost too many loopholes when we talk about transition away from fossil fuels, right? Because it can also mean that you can be going towards transitional fuels, which are like natural gas, and that is also one of the major supplier of greenhouse gas emissions, right? So this was the first major agreement that took place on mitigation. Second thing related to adaptation that we have to understand is that we have seen over so many years from COP26, COP27 and COP28, there has never been a single global goal on adaptation that has been defined. Same is the case was in this year, that there was no global goal on adaptation that was defined. And that is the main drawback we can say of COP28. But yes, they ask the countries that you need to prepare your adaptation plans and submit it accordingly, right? So mitigation के लिए transition away from fossil fuels, adaptation के लिए countries have been asked to prepare the adaptation plans. Third thing is loss and damage. Now, loss and damage fund was, let's say, what we can say, agreed last year in COP27 in Sharm el Sheikh. It has been operationalized from this year COP28 with all the major requirements that are required. Plus, there was initial funding that has been raised as well in loss and damage fund, which is almost $700 million. But trust me, it is nowhere near the mark that is needed for the vulnerable countries in order to adjust to the damages that have been occurring by the climate change from the emissions that have been done by the developed countries historically. This is the point that we have to understand. The need of the R is around $280 billion by 2030. That is in case of loss and damage. But what has been the commitment right now? It is just a meager $700 million. So this is the point that we have to understand in the context of loss and damage. Fourth thing is climate finance. Now, from 2021, there was a provision in Paris Agreement that $100 billion would be financed and mobilized from developed to developing countries. In 2021, they were not able to meet the target, developed countries, not in 2022, and they had promised that by 2023, we would be able to meet the target. So this year, we asked, kahan pe hai target? So they were saying we will able to complete it. Let's say, let complete that 31st December. But there was a new discussion that is going on because this $100 billion target is still the year of 2025. What after 2025? So negotiations are going on that from next year, we're going to start discussing what shall be the climate finance after 2025. And they are saying the base that from where we're going to set up and start negotiating that what shall be the amount would be from $100 billion कि $100 billion के बाद हम start करेंगे कि actual में क्या price होनी चाहिए climate finance की, right? Now, third thing we have to understand is fifth point, that is global stocktake. Now, global stocktake is actually the measure that has been taken by this United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change regarding the commitment of the countries and where they are lacking in contributing and achieving their goals towards Paris Agreement. Now, this is the point we have to understand, that global stocktake has clearly mentioned that we are way behind our target. If we want to achieve our target, we have to reduce 60% emission by 2035 as compared to 2019 levels. So this is the program. These are the 5 main things that have happened inside the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Now, coming outside of the negotiations, there are certain pledges that are being taken by the countries, like global methane pledge. 30% emissions ko kam karna hai by 2030 as compared to 2020 levels. More countries joined in this pledge. Actually, this pledge was formalized at COP26. COP27 more countries joined in, and COP28 more countries have joined in. But India is not a part of this pledge because India's, if we talk about a lot of dependent on agriculture sector, we have a lot of small and marginal farmer as well, and the agriculture and the rice farming is a main contributor if we talk about this methane emission. So as a result, India is not a part of this pledge. Second major thing that happened was related to more countries joined in this forest climate leadership partnership, that is in order to make sure that we are able to halt and reverse deforestation by 2030. So in this context, more countries were given certain provisions, but India was not a part of this. If we talk about forest climate leadership partnership, plus there were certain declaration that was made on, okay, we have to have a sustainable agriculture, integrate food system into NDCs. Then it was about renewable energy capacity ko triple karenge and double the energy efficiency by 2030, and India was not a part of these declarations. I hope you are able to understand this whole COP28. This is very important. Plus one important, COP28 presidency also introduced Altera, that is an investment initiative to mobilize an unprecedented sum of $250 billion by 2030. So this is the point that we have to understand, right? And also India had what we can say, uh, India has joined, started its green credit initiative in order to give credits if there are certain plantations that are taking place along the waste or the dry lands. So these are the things that we have to understand. If you are able to understand this much, I think that is there and enough for COP28, right? Pawan, tell me about suspension. See Pawan, I am teaching अभी global stock take. अभी तुमने suspension को लेके क्या करना है बेटा? Suspend कर दिया, अब उसमें ज्यादा क्या करें, क्या डिस्कस करें उसमें, बताओ चलो. Try to focus on the issues that we are trying to see over here, right? वो रात का प्राइम टाइम का डिबेट है, वो हमारे लिए अभी इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है. हाँ, ये पता होना चाहिए ग्राउंड्स क्या होने चाहिए. अगर हम बात करते हैं, अगर कंडक्ट अच्छा नहीं है तो वो कर सकते हैं. चलो, मूविंग टू द नेक्स्ट पार्ट, because there is nothing that much over here, right? Now coming to the next part. Now, let's say if you want to see these type of news, Sonia Gandhi has said Narendra Modi government has strangulated democracy over the MPs that have been suspended. I think that has been over 140 or 150 that have been suspended. Okay, they were asking about why security breach happened, and as a result, on the basis of conduct, they have been, let's say, suspended. I think you must be knowing the reason. Government issues COVID alert cases, says no clustering of JN.1 cases, right? These are the points you have to understand. I don't think that is okay. Now, this is a new word that has been introduced over here. Disinflation may pay for interest rate cut, RBI officials. I think now everybody knows what is disinflation. I will tell you now. Disinflation is a reduction in the inflation rate. If there is a certain reduction, that is why the RBI official saying कि अगर inflation कम होती है तो हम क्या करेंगे? We will make sure that we are cutting the interest rate, because that is the main thing, that the main thing of monetary policy committee as well. If the inflation is within the range that they are trying to see, then obviously the repo rate would be cut down so that they can introduce money into the market. But what we have seen, that inflation has been quite what we can see a problematic concern for the officials and for the policy maker. As a result, they haven't changed the policy rate as well. Policy rate is what we call it as repo rate. What is this repo rate? It's a rate at which RBI lends to the commercial banks for a short term period, right? So these are the points that we have to understand, that disinflation is a reduction in the inflation rate. Okay. Now coming to the world page. See, Xi Jinping has said China strong, Russia's ties are strategic, right? So these are certain points you have to understand. Hamas leader visits Egypt, indicating talks on hostage swap. Truce is picking up. ठीक है, Colorado court bars Trump from primary ballot in state, right? So it's going to be difficult for them as well. Okay. Now I think these were the important news. Deflation is a different thing. Deflation is different thing. Deflation is when we talk about the prices are continuously falling, right? That is deflation, going into negative. When I talk about disinflation, it is a reduction in the inflation rate. Okay, right, guys. I think that's it for today. And today's editorials and were very much easy, right? So nothing important. बस एक फ्रंट पेज पे न्यूज थी, नए बिल्स ने लोकसभा में जो थे क्रिमिनल बिल्स दैट दे हैव बीन रिप्लेस्ड, राइट? ब्रिटिश इरा क्रिमिनल लॉज, एज यू कैन सी, ब्रिटिश सॉरी भारतीय न्याय संहिता बिल रिप्लेसिंग इंडियन पीनल कोड 1860, भारतीय साक्ष्य बिल रिप्लेसिंग इंडियन एविडेंस एक्ट 1872, भारतीय नागरिक सुरक्षा संहिता बिल दैट इज कोड ऑफ क्रिमिनल प्रोसीजर 1898, right? So these are the points that we have to understand, right? You have any doubt, you can ask me, because we have certain time before I end the session for today, right? So today's newspaper is a very easy one. Try to remember it. This is a very easy thing. And do remember this thing, that the editorial that I told you, it is very important. Make sure that you are adding these point in your notes where you have written about economics and you are seeing inflation as well, right? So these are the things that you have to understand and make sure that you integrate in your notes, right? Dynamic part is also very important of your preparation. It is not only getting to know the definitions, but it's also very important to include these points in your notes. Then at the end of the day, you will never be needing the magazines, right? जो monthly magazines या PT 365, you will never be needing them when you are doing it on a current basis and integrating everything that is coming in current affairs in your notes, right? This is the thing. If we talk about PT 365 or the daily magazines that are coming, they are also doing from the newspapers and stuff only, right? If you're doing it on a daily basis, then everything would be at your doorstep, right? So it would be very easy. Hanji. Sir, why Afghan not included? See, Afghanistan has not been included. He has not been included from COP 26 and 27 as well. The reason being that no one is recognizing them, the Taliban government. No one has diplomatically established ties with Taliban government when they overtook in 2021. As a result, because the Taliban government overtook the Afghanistan in 2021, they have not been recognized. As a result, they have not been made a part of this COP negotiations as well. Moreover, there are certain orthodoxies that comes up with the Taliban government, as you might have seen over here about the problems that there are certain gender discrimination, right? So these are the things that has to be addressed. Maybe then only they could be addressed and they could be given an nyota or invitation to be part of COP 29. Vikas Nagar, how much specifically for HCS? See, I can't be saying ke important nahi hai. I have seen HCS, there are questions that are coming, but not in that much amount as compared to other examinations like state PCS, Punjab, and UPSC, right? So I know questions come, but there are 5 to 6 questions, and mostly they are very basic questions, and coming might be from the current affairs. Yes. Anybody else? Anybody has a doubt? Hanji, guys. Anybody else? So shall I end the session then? I'm waiting for anyone has any doubt related to their preparation, current affairs. I'm there to help you guys. अच्छा एक चीज और है आई हैव बीन टेलिंग यू लेटली दैट प्लीज add on your notes in the map related to Russia Ukraine, Red Sea वाला एरिया, सुदान वाला एरिया, पर्शियन गल्फ वाला एरिया. This is very very important. We will be getting a question in prelims this year, right? Red Sea, I am saying it very because it is a new issue that has now happened in Red Sea, that Houthi rebels are attacking the container ships. You might get to see a question in this paper. So make sure, yeah, the map of Red Sea, all of the locations, all of the countries and nearby water bodies are on your tips, because that is going to be coming in the examination. Yes, it could be important. Yes, very good. If there are certain ports, yes, it could be very important. Can inflation play a positive role in the growth of the country? Yes, inflation does play, Komal, an important role, but up to a certain limit. It can't be, has to be certain inflation. Inflation means there is a money in the market. If there is no money in the market, there will be no demand. If there will be no demand, there will be no production. If there will be no production, supply will be reduced. If the supply has to be reduced, people has to be lay off from the jobs, right? Production कम हुई, GDP, as a result it will have a direct impact on the laying off होगा और उससे employment के ऊपर फर्क पड़ेगा. So these are the certain areas that have been we can say joined in as well. So if there is too much of inflation, then the people will not demand, right? कि लोगों की डिमांड ही नहीं हो पाएगी, फिर वो धीरे धीरे ऑब्वियसली सप्लाई कम हो जाएगी, उससे भी प्रॉब्लम आएगी. सो इट हैज टू बी अ बैलेंस एंड अ मिडल पाथ दैट वी हैव टू नीड. Then we talk about inflation, that is an optimal rate, then it is fine, otherwise it is not good. How do mangroves increase the amount of carbon in the atmosphere? See, they act as a carbon sink as well. How do they increase the carbon? Is your question correct? I doubt. Mangroves are basically trees only. So trees perform the function of photosynthesis. They intake carbon and they prepare what we know. Damage to mangroves. अच्छा, डैमेज टू मैंग्रोव्स है, ठीक है यार बेटा, सिंपल सी बात है, मैंग्रोव्स को डैमेज करोगे, हटाओगे, उनमें कार्बन सिंक करने की क्षमता है, कार्बन अब्जॉर्ब करने की, खत्म हो जाएंगे तो कार्बन अब्जॉर्ब कहां से करेंगे? मैंने डैमेज पढ़ा नहीं, सॉरी, वही बात है जो मैं बता रहा हूँ। If you will remove the area that is under mangroves, mangroves are nothing but trees only. Epicenia, Rhizophora, right? Black mangroves, red mangroves. So these are the type of trees that absorb carbon dioxide. So if you will damage them, then how? Yes, obviously, then amount of carbon dioxide will increase. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for today joining in. Thank you so much. We will see each other tomorrow, same time, 9 a.m. Till then, keep sharing, liking, and subscribing our YouTube channel. And thank you so much.